What's up, you guys, and welcome back to my channel. It has been quite a while since I made a video, but I'm back and recharged and ready to make some more videos, starting with this December plan with me. So getting right into it, I wrote my December header just below the center of the page in my normal handwriting. And then I decided to use a gray color to help make it stand out from my theme, which is holly, because I wanted to be festive for the Christmas season. You all know I love my simple cover pages, so I chose to draw just one large holly centered above my header. I like to keep my covers minimal because the rest of my spreads tend to be fuller but still simple, if that makes sense. Then to finish off the cover page, I just colored in the holly using a nice deep red color for the center and a deep green for the leaves. For my calendar spread, I used a very classic calendar design and centered it across the two pages, but also left some extra space at the top. I first drew straight edges with my ruler to outline the calendar and then sectioned off one row across the top for writing in the days of the week. And lastly, drew the calendar grid. I decided not to include the vertical lines in the top section for the days, which is not what I normally do, but I kind of like how it turned out. Then in the open space at the top of the page, I wrote my monthly header. Normally, I would have had the header span the entire top section of the page, but this time I only had to take up about half of the space so I could include more doodles. In the remaining space, I drew holly in alternating directions all around the calendar. If you're someone who likes to use this spread for lots of planning, then instead of drawing the holly down the sides of the calendar, you could put some sections for important dates, goals, or major tasks for the month. I personally don't use this spread too often other than to write down major events, so I don't like to put any other sections on this page. But even with the added sections, you would still be able to tie in this theme or anything you choose by drawing the holly on either side of the monthly header. Next, I colored in the calendar header with the red color and numbered all of the boxes with the days for December. At the top of the calendar, in the section I colored in red, I wrote in the first 3 letters of each day of the week in all capital letters. And to finish off the spread, I then colored in all of the holly around the calendar. For anyone who may be wondering, I am using the Notebook Therapy Fuji Bullet Journal. I'm so in love with all of the journals from Notebook Therapy. They're so high quality and not expensive at all. As you can tell from this video, there's never any bleeding through the paper, even with the dark colors, and the pages are actually white, so your colors won't turn out weird. If you want to try one out for yourself, which you definitely should, you can click the link in the description and use my code for 10% off. This first weekly spread is somewhat of a new layout that I wanted to try. With having some time away from journaling, I was able to kind of expand my bullet journal mind and come up with new ways to design my weekly spreads. I started to feel a little unmotivated with journaling before, and just by changing up the layouts a little bit has brought back my desire to journal more often. But for this layout, I drew holly in the top 2 corners of each daily section and connected them together in the middle with a single straight line. I also left a space in the center of that line to write in the days of the week. And I put the mini calendar and monthly header in the empty section at the bottom right. I know this spread looks a little empty with all of the white space, but I promise it won't look that way once you start writing things down under each day. Next, I colored in all of the holly that make up the daily sections and added in the days of the week in the empty space I left at the top of each section. To do something different, I only added the first letter of each day and then wrote the number of the day around the letter. And lastly, I wrote in all of the days and numbers into the mini calendar. For my second weekly spread, I chose a layout that I like to use pretty often, but made a few tweaks to tie it into the theme better. So I started by drawing holly in just the top left corner of where each box will start, and then drew the sides of the box to intersect the holly so that it could be a part of the box. I only put the holly in the top left corner, but looking at it now, I think it would look even better if I also put it in the bottom right corner. It's a little too late for me now, but if you choose to make this spread, you could definitely add in the second one in the bottom right corner. In the empty space in the top left of the page, I wrote just the first 3 letters of the monthly header and added the mini calendar underneath that. There is also a little extra room, so I added another holly drawing in the empty space. Then I colored in all of the holly and highlighted the area for the daily headers in the same gray color I used for the monthly header. I chose to use this gray color for the headers because I wanted it to stand out from the holly drawing that it's next to. I just felt like it would have been difficult to see the days if I used the red or the green. But in the highlighted area, I wrote in the days of the week in my regular lowercase handwriting. And then to finish off the spread, I wrote in the number of each day at the bottom of the boxes. This next spread is tied as my favorite with the next one, which you'll see in a few minutes, but it's kind of funny to me that they're both my favorite because they're completely different spreads. But after writing the monthly header centered across the top of the page, I drew a holly on the outer edge of each daily section in a similar way as the first weekly spread. Except instead of putting the holly on both sides of the daily section, I only did one on the outer edge. Then the only other thing I did for these sections was write the number of each day right next to the holly drawing and write the days of the week across the top of each section. I decided to write these daily headers in cursive to not only keep things different between spreads, but also so I could make a continuous header across the whole page by connecting the drawing and the writing. I love this simple single line calligraphy, and I think this aspect is the main reason I like this spread so much. It just makes this whole piece look more elegant and airy, and I'm just really happy with how it turned out. I definitely went with the less is more view for this spread, and to maintain the minimal look, I decided to not highlight the days of the week like I normally do. Keeping it super simple also helps balance out any other spreads that include lots of design and color like the next one you'll see. To keep each side of the spread even, I decided to add a notes section. Sometimes I use this section and sometimes I don't, but it's always nice to include it anyway when there's extra space. Then I added the mini calendar within the notes section at the bottom of the page because I know I won't need that much space to make notes. And lastly, I just colored in all of the holly drawings. Again, I chose not to add any color to the days of the week, but if I did, I probably would have used the same gray color as the monthly header. My fourth weekly spread is my other favorite of this month, and it's a layout I've used quite a few times, but for some reason it looks so much better with this theme. So I started by drawing ribbons across the top of where each daily section will be, and I added an additional one for notes so I don't end up with a random empty space at the bottom of the page. Next, I added holly where the bottom right corner of the boxes will be before drawing in the sides of the boxes, which connect to the ribbon and the holly. I like how this looks with just one holly in each box, but if you wanted to add more to the spread, you could always add another one in the bottom left corner of each box. After outlining the boxes, I added some more doodles on either side of where I wrote the monthly header, and I positioned them in a way to kind of frame the header, but you can draw them in any way you like. Once everything was framed out, I added some life to the spread by coloring in all of the holly, and then coloring in the ribbons using only the red color. There's already a decent amount of green in the spread from the holly, so I didn't want to use that color for the ribbons. Plus, it would be kind of hard to see the days of the week since the color is so dark. The gray color used for the monthly header would probably look good as well if you don't like the red though. But to finish off the daily boxes, I wrote in the days of the week on the ribbons in all capital letters and added the number of each day in the bottom right corner next to the holly. And if you don't like having the numbers in that spot, you could also add them to the ribbons next to the days of the week. And of course, you can't forget about the mini calendar, which I placed in the remaining space at the top right corner. For my last weekly spread, I decided to try a layout that is completely different from all the previous ones, and it's not one I use very often. But I started by drawing holly in each of the 4 corners of the main box that will contain all of the daily headers. I know that sounds a little confusing, but you'll see what I mean in a minute. And as you can see, I left some space across the top for the monthly header, but you could also put this at the bottom of the spread by shifting the entire box up. Then I connected all of the holly drawings with a straight line using my ruler to make the main box, and then drew vertical lines within the main box to make the 7 daily sections. In addition to trying a new layout, I also wanted to try something new with the daily headers. So instead of having them completely separated by the boxes, I wrote them out in cursive with one continuous line that crosses between the vertical lines. I also chose not to add any color to them because I thought it would make it too busy and the color would kind of take away from its minimal beauty. Though I also don't think it would be bad if you wanted to add color to the headers, so feel free to do that if you think it looks too simple. After finishing the headers, I colored in all of the holly around the spread. And lastly, to finish the spread, I first highlighted where the numbers of each day will be in the same gray color as the monthly header, and then wrote the numbers within the highlighted area. To start my habit tracker, I of course made the header in the same style as my previous spreads and then wrote tracker underneath it in all capital letters. I like to keep all of my headers similar to tie all of the spreads for the month together, and I just like when everything looks the same. The layout I chose for my habit tracker is one that I use pretty often and is probably my favorite to use. I start by drawing an arrow flag on the left and then 2 rows of boxes, 1 box for each day of the month, to the right of the flag. And as I go down the page, I like to alternate the flags from left to right, but having them all start on the same side also looks really nice. I only wanted to track 6 habits this month, so with the extra space at the bottom of the page, I drew some holly in alternating directions. But instead of this part, you could also add another habit if you like to track more than 6. This next part did not turn out how I imagined it in my head, and I don't particularly like it, but I colored in all of the flags by alternating between the green and the red color. If I were to go back and do this again, I would just stick to one color for all of the flags because it would look a lot cleaner. I also didn't realize until after I was done filming, but I forgot to write in the habits I want to track, so that's another reason why I think this looks a little bit weird. Then to finish off the spread, I colored in the holly that I drew at the bottom of the page. And lastly, I made a mood tracker with the same header as the habit tracker, but instead of having it in the center of the page, I moved it to be closer to the left edge in order to fit the actual tracker portion. I decided to only track 2 moods this month, so I chose a light and a dark green for those colors. Then, to track my moods, I added a holly drawing for each day of the month and spread them across the entire page. To make it more festive, you could organize the holly into a wreath, which is what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the patience for it when the time came. But that is all for my December Plan With Me video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and got some good ideas for your own journal. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video.